renal artery, and there's the right renal artery. This will do it. So we did the circulatory system. Blood came down the abdominal aorta, came across the renal arteries and went into the kidney. See the little fingers right here? That is the segmental arteries. You can see the segmental arteries right here, because then they're going to go up between the pyramids. So on this one, you can see this artery coming up between the pyramid. This is the interlobar artery. It arcs across the top of the pyramid. That is the arcuate artery. And then it goes up into the cortex. This is the cortical radiate arteries.
Cortical radiate?
Cortical, C-O-R-T-I-C-A-L. Radiate, R-A-D-I-A-T-E, 2 words. Cortical radiate artery. In some literature, they call it the interlobular artery, but it gets confused with the interlobar. So off of the cortical radiate artery, I have the afferent arteriole. The afferent arteriole goes into the glomerulus, this capillary knot. And then it comes out the efferent arteriole. When it comes out the efferent arteriole, if it wraps around these white tubules up here, we call it the peritubular capillary. If it comes down and wraps around this white loop, we call it the vasa recta, okay? Either way, it's coming back to that little bitty one right there, and that is a stellate vein, number 17 on your picture. Then it goes into the cortical radiate vein, the arcuate vein, the interlobar vein, the segmental veins, the renal vein, to the inferior vena cava. Okay? Now, when we look at the tubular system, this is the glomerulus. It's blood vessels surrounded by this cup, and this is the glomerular capsule. When I take the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule together, it makes the renal corpuscle. But when I'm looking at the tubular system, if I look where the blood vessels come in to the glomerulus and I go straight across, here's the proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal convoluted tubule means the little twisted ones closest to the glomerulus. So I come out, these are the proximal convoluted tubules here. Then it goes down the descending limb of the nephron loop, and it turns at the nephron loop and comes up the ascending limb, and then it gets squiggly again, the distal convoluted tubule. This is the collecting duct, and the easy way to tell the distal convoluted tubule is that's this tube emptying into the collecting duct. And the collecting duct gets urine from a lot of different nephrons, and all the way down here it becomes the papillary duct. Okay? Be careful, because I can get sneaky on you and come over here, and this is the proximal convoluted tubule on this one, and this is the distal. See, they're flipped. Okay? Don't let me do that to you. When I'm looking at the different layers, all I can see here is the renal capsule. But remember that out here I have adipose tissue, and then I have the renal fascia that attaches the kidney to the posterior abdominal wall. But all I can see here is the renal capsule. All of this is cortex. This whole area is the medulla. So all of this is cortex. And where you see it going between the pyramids, that's renal columns that belong to the cortex. If I say name this dark area, that's the medulla. If I say name that structure, that's a renal pyramid. This is a renal pyramid. If I say name the area, it's the medulla. And then this is the renal pelvis. So my areas, my regions are the cortex, the medulla, and the renal pelvis. When I look at the pyramid, the base faces the cortex, and the papilla, the apex, goes into that minor calyx. Every minor calyces has a renal papilla, the tip of the pyramid sticking into it. Right here, I can see one sticking into that minor calyx. See it? When I have 3 minor calyces, it makes a major. And when I take the major calyces, it makes the renal pelvis. And the renal pelvis has urine that drips into the ureter, and the urine goes down to the urinary bladder. All right? Give me a urinary bladder. I'll do this. Now give me a urinary bladder. That one. So the urinary bladder sits in here like this. This is the front. So I take the urinary bladder, and the ureters come in the back. They would come in right here. So I tilt it back. I'm looking inside. I've got these ridges. These ridges are rugae. They allow the bladder to stretch. Those 2 little pink circles are the ureteral openings, or the opening to the ureter. And that white triangle is the trigon. It doesn't have any rugae. It does not stretch. And right here is the internal opening to the urethra. This is the prostate gland. So this is the prostatic urethra. Okay? Now, when I look at the urinary bladder, give me the male and female model, please. Oh, good. When I look, oh, I got it. I'll do this one first. When I look, this is the urinary bladder in the male. See this muscle going all the way around? That's the detrusor muscle. It's really 3 layers of muscle, but we call it one. We call it the detrusor muscle, smooth muscle. Right there in the neck of the bladder, I have the internal urethral sphincter. Then I have the 4 parts of the male urethra. This piece going through the prostate is the prostatic urethra. That little bitty piece right there is the membranous urethra. And all of this is penile urethra or spongy urethra. And right there where it enlarges is the fossa navicularis.
The what?
Fossa, F-O-S-S-A, navicularis, N-A-V-I-C-U-L-A-R-I-A-S. See this opening right here? It's the urethral meatus. All right, meatus is the opening, urethral meatus. Now, this is the urogenital diaphragm. Internal urethral sphincter is right here in the neck of the bladder. The external urethral sphincter is right there in the urogenital diaphragm. This is skeletal muscle. This you can control once the nerves get down there. Okay? This is the muscle that we keep telling you we have to exercise so we don't become incontinent as we get older. In a female, and that's about 8 inches long, that urethra. In a female, I lay her on her back. When I lay her on her back, I've got 1, 2, 3. Urethra, vaginal vault, anus. Okay? Problematic because this urethra on a female is only about 1 inch to 1.5 inches long. Look how close it is to the vaginal vault and the anus. As soon as we do this, we take E. coli from the digestive tract, put it in the vaginal vault, vaginal infection, put it into the urethra, bladder infection, or infection of the urethra. A woman only has 1 part to her urethra, and that is the membranous urethra. Okay? Again, that's why we exercise that, because it'll keep her from being incontinent when she gets older. This is the urinary bladder. This is the urinary bladder. I knew I was looking at it upside down. This is the urinary bladder. It has the detrusor muscle. Right there in the neck of the bladder is the internal urethral sphincter. Right here in the urogenital diaphragm is the external urethral sphincter, skeletal muscle. Okay? That's it.